and the password management. Fine. Okay. So let me share my screen. I have opened up the OWASP document. To take care about the authentication and the password management, we are taking care about the VAPT. Into that, we are moving ahead with the secure programming practices or secure software coding. Fine. Now, two things you need to understand since we are working with a distributed environment. And when you are crossing the boundary from one particular environment, let's say of one particular network, you are crossing the boundary and you are moving ahead to the another network. For example, let's say the Facebook is an application which is getting globally used. I can access my account anywhere, wherever I am sitting globally. So in that particular sense, I need to understand how exactly my identity is being cross-checked. Fine. So identity is going to be there with respect to your username as well as the password. I do not remember exactly where we have discussed this or not. But when we go with the multi-factor authentication, so let me share my screen with you. Let me open up my Word document. And let me share my screen. So when you go with respect to, for example, now you are supposed to design a web page which will take care about the, the username as well as the password, the user credentials, fine. Now, since we are taking care about the two-factor authentication, we are taking care about the multi-factor authentication. So what do you mean by that? What is the multi-factor? What is the two-factor authentication? That means you are responsible enough to take care about different ways to identify yourself, fine. So in that sense, you may have the password, you may have the the pin, you may have the location wherever you are, you may have the different kind of things are always going to be there. So there are the multi-factor authentication, three-factor authentication, two-factor authentication, lots of things are there. So when you are developing a multi-factor authentication system or let's say three-factor authentication system, so with respect to those three factors, so you need to understand that what could be those three factors. So the factors are, we are taking care about the authentication mechanism where we say identity, authentication, authorization, let's say auditing, as well as the accountability. Fine. So one is authentication. You say is authentication. One is say authorization. One is say auditing, and one is say accountability. Fine. Okay. So, and this, the first I is named as identity. So there is a difference between the identity and the authentication. Identity means your credentials. Identity means your credential, your username. That is your identity. Authentication required to understand, okay, you are the actual user for which you are putting your name. Are you getting all the participants what I'm trying to say? Identity means your own credentials, and authentication is that means you are putting your password, your PIN, or whatever, your PAN ID, or whatever the things are. Why? Because you need to prove that you are that user, and that is supposed to be done by authentication. Are you with me, all the participants? We are discussing the identity as well as the authentication. Fine? All the participants, are you with me? Are you with me? My dear students.
Yes,
Are
ma'am.
you getting what I'm trying to tell you? Okay. So this is the identity authentication, authorization, auditing, and accountability. So let's talk about the authentication. I'm asked to develop the two-factor authentication. So for the two-factor, I'm going to say, okay, the password is a one way. So that means when you take care about the different kind of authentication, there are three different categories. One is something you know. Or what do you know? Something you know. So what you know, for example, you know the password. Right? The second category is going to refer to something you have. So what you have the PAN card number, you have the driving license number, you are having the smart card, you are having the any of the voters ID card or the Aadhaar card, whatever the things are. So what is something you have? Please take a note. So that means, for example, Aadhaar card, PAN card, etc. Whatever the things are. And the third thing is, suppose I need to have the three-factor authentication for my own security of the data. So I'm going to say something you are. You are, that means your name is not you are. Your fingerprints is what you are. Your retina scan is what you are. Your voice is what you are. So when you take care about, so here I can say what you are, that means your fingerprints, your retina scan, etc. Right. Generally, we do not use the retina scan. The only reason, or the face scan, whatever you say. Generally, we do not use the retina scan. The only reason is because retina scan is going to give you a huge scope to understand the medical history for the attackers. Okay, so this is the the property of the retina scan, that through the scanning of your retina you will get to know exactly the medical history of an employee. So generally we do not prefer to have the retina scan, but that's what you are. So when you take care about the when you have asked that, okay, for your application, just take care about the the multi-factor authentication. So when you say the multi-factor authentication, so where we are going to move something, initially I'm going to give the password. For the second factor, I may give my Aadhaar card number. For the third factor, I may provide my fingerprints. Somewhere you can say something, or you can say some place where you are. Okay? So this is nothing but location. Fine. So these are the multi-factor authentication. So that's what we need to understand. I think Dell has asked me, okay. So Dell has asked me the question, can you explain identity authentication? Okay, I could not understand, the voice was breaking. Fine Dell. So then you need to take care about whenever the authentication is getting done. Authentication is a process by which you are making sure that you are that person. Identity is your username. And when you say that you are that username, that is a process of authentication. That means something is authenticating you, that you are the username. You are the correct username. You are Dell or you are Tejaswini. So this is the way by which your password is authenticating you. I do not want to work with the password. I am not so sure about the password. After the password, so Password is what? Something you know. So that's what I written on my Word document as well. Something you know. You know your password. You know your PIN. So if I am going to ask, okay, just give me two-factor authentication. So two-factor authentication, if I just combine the password as well as the PIN, then no. Are you getting my point? So in that case, this could not be the part of multi-factor authentication. The reason is because the password also you know and PIN also you know. Are you getting all the participants? But something you have, something is quite unique to you. That means Aadhaar card. So once the password is there, after that I am going to put my Aadhaar card number. Still the application demands is quite secure application. Still that application demands that, okay, now shows that something you are. So who are you? Which is going to give you the understanding by your fingerprints, by your retina scan, and so on and so forth. So those are the things what you need to carry. Something you know, something you have, and something you are. Are you getting there? I believe I answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. What about barcodes? They can also be used.
Barcodes
Or
are
QR
not for
codes.
you. The QR codes is for the application, what you are using. So after putting the password, so when you take care about, for example, the WhatsApp web, you are taking care about the QR code for the WhatsApp web.
Yes,
So
yes.
that QR code is going to be the part of something you know. Why? Because or you that can be the part of something you have because that particular QR code is for you, which is getting generated onto your phone for the WhatsApp web. But initially, it is going to be the part of something you know. Are you getting it? Because you know your PIN, you know the QR code, you know the password, and which is continuously getting changed. Aadhaar card number do not get changed. Something you have do not get changed. Fine? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Yeah. So sometimes any of the application to take care about the multi-factor authentication may include the location as well, that's some place where you are. Fine. So these are the different kind of things. So generally we go with these three initially. But yeah, in some of the application you can have this particular thing as well. So you need to understand that how exactly the authentication is going. So the vulnerability is going to be included into your application. If you are trying to support the multi-factor authentication by only something you know. Are you getting me? Because I know the password, it is quite possible that if I'm working as a non-legitimate user, so into that particular sense, I'm aware of the application is asking me the password, application is asking me for the PIN, and application is asking me for something else. So PIN I can get, password also I can get. So there is nothing impossible to enter into that particular application. But yeah, if you have something you know and something you have, as a non-legitimate user or as a bad user, I need to work really hard to get your Aadhaar number or to get your PAN card number so that I can prove that I'm you. If the application is really secure, so I can say, okay, no. I cannot rely on the password or the Aadhaar card. Let the third thing be something you are. Where you need to give the fingerprints, where you need to give the retina scan, or whether you need to give the face scan. So these are the things, and the vulnerabilities are going to be included just because of your lenient behavior as a developer. That why to have something you know, something you have, or something you are. Just have something you know 3 times. Just have something you have 3 or 4 times. Just as try to understand a person who is aware of, okay, it is just asking me for the Aadhaar card, for the PAN card, or so it is or the license number. So once I get the Aadhaar card, I may be getting the license number, I may be getting the PAN card number as well, because everything is linked right now, isn't it? So exactly, so we do not apply, or any of the application do not apply the combination of the single one. And if they are trying to apply there itself, they are introducing the vulnerability into their applications. Are you getting all the participants what I'm trying to tell you? Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, there are two things what you need to understand. When you say something you are, when you say something you are, that means maybe the biometric scan you must be doing. What if that biometric machine is not working? A rejection rate is there or false rejection error is there. Fine. So when you say the false rejection error is occurring means what?
Need a backup pin.
Yeah, the system is
Yeah.
actually rejecting a legitimate user or a good user, you can say, and which is just saying that, okay, this particular user is not registered with us. So fine, if your biometric scan is falsely rejecting a one particular person, but it cannot accept falsely a unknown person as a legitimate user. Are you getting my point? So there is a false acceptance rate which could be really, really dangerous as compared to the false rejection rate. So when you say FRR, that means it is nothing but the false rejection rate. So I think there were some dissertation projects about, okay, how exactly the machine is going to identify a one particular person. So you need to understand this particular thing, that these are the vulnerabilities which exist because of either you are just using the single guidelines about something you know or something you have, or you are just your behavior is quite lenient, that you are not targeting about the false rejection rate, or you can say false acceptance rate. So this is nothing but the false acceptance rate, right? So which is going to say FRR or FAR. Are you getting me, all the participants? And the third thing is there. Okay. Now, then how do I take care about? I'm taking my application is moving ahead. My application is going ahead for three-factor authentication. And for three-factor authentication, I'm saying that, okay, I need to have something you are lastly. Now, when I'm going to say something you are lastly, that means somewhere I need to take care about the biometric scan. So biometric scan is may have this false rejection rate or false acceptance rate. Now, if I'm going to have this particular, false rejection rate or false acceptance rate, so how do I choose the biometric, or how do I select the biometric? To take care about the biometric, there is a one thing what you need to understand, and there are many dissertation projects. As far as I remember, there are 2 to 3 dissertation projects which are currently running on with this particular biometric, which is named as CER. CER named as crossover error rate. So we call it as a crossover error rate. Okay, and we always buy a biometric system for an application which for which the CER is less. Please take a note on to this, for which the CER is less. Let me give you the images of CER. Let me show you the images. Just hold on. CER images. Okay. Crossover error rate. Yeah. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see the images of crossover CER? Hello. Are you with
No,
me,
ma'am.
dear students?
Yes, ma'am. No, it's with.
Yeah. So now you can see the false rejection rate and you can see the false acceptance rate. And somewhere this is the cross intersection where they both are crossing each other. The lower the CER is going to have, lower the CER is going to have, the accuracy of that particular biometric system is really going to be good. Just
What
take
kind
a
of
look.
graph is this?
Yes?
What kind of graph is this? Like,
Yeah, this is the FRR, which is the false rejection rate. And this is the FAR, that means false acceptance rate. Fine. Generally, if you are going to get higher false rejection rate, it is okay. No need to have any panic mode because the system is going to reject everyone. But the vulnerability is going to be introduced more when the system is going to accept falsely anyone. So you can see to this particular boundary, these two graphs are crossing each other. So if I say CER exists somewhere here, so they are crossing over here, so I can take care about, okay, the false rejection rate is more. Why? Because I'm going to cross somewhere over here. Or false acceptance rate is more. As we have discussed already, I can go with the false rejection rate, but I cannot afford to have the false acceptance rate. So lower the CER you are going to have, the accuracy of that particular biometric system is more going to be good. So whenever you are going to buy any of the biometric system for your own application, you need to understand what is the crossover error rate for that particular biometric system. Are you getting? Because the biometric system is going to take care about your three-factor authentication, which is going to tell you the something you are. Are you getting my point? All the students? Hello? We are understanding the terminologies. Please take a note onto this. We are taking care about the identity as well as the authentication. In the authentication, we have discussed multi-factor authentication. In the multi-factor authentication, we have discussed something you know, something you have, and something you are. Are you getting me, my dear students? Hello? Are you with me?
yes, ma'am.
Shall we proceed ahead? Tanmay, Akash,
Yes.
Ahmed.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. Is
Ma'am,
there any?
ma'am,
Uh-huh.
I just got.
Hello?
Yeah, ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yes, please go ahead.
Ma'am, I got confused between those two, the false rate something.
Okay.
Forgot the.
False acceptance rate means what? System is going to accept everyone, even if he is not a legitimate user. Okay. So I'm trying to enter into some kind of office premises, let's say. There the biometric system is there. And I know that biometric system is not and will let me in. Fine, Tanmay?
Ma'am,
Hello.
your mic wasn't working for some time, I guess.
Oh, okay, because I got disconnected with the internet.
Yeah.
What I'm saying that when you say the false acceptance rate, that means your biometric is going to accept everyone, irrespective of whether that user is a legitimate user or not. Okay, so
Okay.
anyone can take the advantage of that. So something you are, which is a third part of the multi-factor authentication, which is going to be introduced the different kind of vulnerabilities for your application. Why? Because your biometric system is not working correctly. As simple as that. So how to take care about the false rejection rate. So false rejection rate, that means your biometric system is going to reject everyone. Doesn't matter whether he is a legitimate user or not. So false rejection rate is quite good as compared to the false acceptance rate. And that you need to understand if you are taking care, if your application is taking care about the multi-factor authentication. And when you send the multi-factor authentication and your application is asking me, please, switch on the camera and whatever, do the face or the retina scan. So in that particular case, you need to understand that that biometric must be working properly. So this is your job as a software developer to see that how exactly those systems are working. What is the crossover error rate for FRR and FAR?
Ma'am,
Mhm.
ma'am, but in this one, if it is taking the any legitimate user, like if it is,
Mhm.
it's not concerned whether the user has the data present in their database. So that means,
Mhm.
ma'am, there can be a complete authentication error, right?
Yes, exactly. So Tanmay, authentication is a major part of any of the application. It's a
Yeah,
major
ma'am.
part. And if this part is not working, that is the major thing. So when you are developing your code, when you are saying, okay, just give me the username and the password. So you are having only a single authentication. You're not having the multi-factor authentication. So what do you mean by multi-factor authentication? So it is being divided. So even if it is bypassed by first, still it is going to be, can be blocked by the second authentication as well.
Okay,
Fine.
ma'am. Can I ask you another thing?
Please go ahead.
Ma'am, just we take an example, like when we go into any website, then there is
Mm-hmm.
a point where they just ask sign up with Google. So if you are signing up with Google or your email, is that a multiple way authentication?
Okay. So we will go back to this particular thing. Let's move ahead first. I haven't discussed base of whatever your question is right now. Fine.
Okay, ma'am.
So maybe during this particular session or maybe in the next session, today itself, we are going to discuss that. Fine, Tanmay?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question?
No, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, shall we move ahead, all the students?
Where? Wait. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Shall we move ahead? Yeah, so let me share that document again with the OWASP. Yeah. Now, all authentication control must be enforced, fine, establish, utilize standard, tested, authenticated service, whatever the possible, and centralized implementation of all the authentication control using the libraries that call the external authentication services. Okay. So Tanmay, let me create a base for your question with these 2 points. as well as the segregate authentication logic from the resource being requested, and they use redirection to and from the centralized authentication control. Fine. Okay. So let's talk about the authentication and how exactly the vulnerability is being introduced into the authentication firstly. So right now, whenever you take care about your authentication, suppose you are, and just listen to me carefully what I'm trying to tell you. Please take a note onto this. Now, I do have the different kind of authentication mechanism always. Could be centralized, could be distributed. Now, when you take care about the centralized one, how exactly the things are supposed to move on? Whenever the user credential is passing your web page to the other page, the user credentials are encrypted. They are encrypted, so let me share my document again with you. Just hold on. And it is quite interesting, and just I would like to have the entire focus on what we are discussing. Yeah. So data is going to be always there in data in rest, data in motion, and data in transit, right? So when you say the data in rest, so basically which is going to be there onto the storage devices, right? When you say the data in motion, so basically when you are going from one web page to other, that time the data is in motion. And data in transit, that means somewhere you are working, for example, the data which is in the memory. Now, what is going to happen generally when you say the data in rest? So data in rest is going to be encrypted by, let's say, AES 256 or advanced encryption standard, or there are many algorithms into this. So this is going to be encrypted using this. It is said to be that if you are going to be implement AES 256, so there won't be any kind of vulnerability, but if implemented correctly. But most of the time, this particular, all the algorithms which are there into the AES is not implemented correctly, and because of that, they are going to introduce the different kind of vulnerabilities. And same here with the DES as well. So we won't go ahead and go to take care about AES and DES. No. When you go with the data in transit, that means the data is moving from data is in motion. That means one page to another. The data is going to be secure with respect to the, for example, the TLS and SSL. Okay. Now, you need to understand two things altogether. There are the different kind of authentication protocol which exist to understand the identity of your system. Let me open up one protocol for you which is named as Kerberos. And let me show you the diagram for it. Yeah. So this is a quite nice diagram, and see here, this is a very nice diagram what the Kerberos is trying to give you. And now we are going to take care about how exactly the authentication server is going to work on. So this is a very nice, you can say the authentication protocol, or we say the Kerberos authentication server. So at the first, so there are three levels as well. One is, you can say here, let me show you this particular server. Yeah, this image. User is requesting a ticket. Now focus on what I'm saying. User is requesting a ticket. What is the ticket is going to contain? What do you mean by TGT over here, which is being written? So TGT is nothing which is named as the ticket granting ticket. So what is the TGT? Kerberos is supposed to generate a ticket to take care about the user authentication. Please focus on. So user is requesting a ticket from the Kerberos. User is requesting a ticket from the Kerberos, and that ticket along with the session key is given by the Kerberos to the user. Now while taking care about the ticket, Kerberos is aware of, now please make sure about what I'm saying. Before granting the ticket, Kerberos is aware of what are the user credentials and from which machine user is working. Please focus on what I'm saying. Kerberos is the authentication server. When the user tries to log in, that particular user is going to request for the ticket. Kerberos is responsible to give the ticket. TGT names as ticket granting ticket, which is a token issued by the Kerberos for the user along with the session key. And that session key is going to be valid till the session exists. Now, once the TGT as well as I'm sorry about it. Once the TGT as well as the session is being given to the user is going to request a ticket or going to send the ticket along with the authentication. Now, again, so based on this particular token, user is going to request a ticket along with the authentication. This particular Kerberos server is supposed to embed the session key with the appropriate authentication token. And once the authentication is done successfully, this particular ticket is transferred to the resource server by the user. And this resource server is going to say, okay, this particular token is validated and this particular token is created by the KDC or the Kerberos data center. So in that particular case, this particular user request is being authenticated. So this is the authentication server. Kerberos is a very small authentication server. If you are working in the Linux, so Kerberos automatically comes with the Linux environment. All the participants, please focus on what I am saying. Are you with me, all the students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any question? Let me revise it once more. Fine. Okay. So Kerberos is named as the authentication server. So when you say the authentication server, so how exactly those authentication server is going to work? So generally the Kerberos is, the user is going to request the ticket. Fine. The Kerberos server is responsible to provide the what you can say ticket along with the session key, or Kerberos server is responsible to provide the token along with the session key. Based on that token and the session key, user is going to require the ticket along with the authentication information. So with this, one more ticket is getting generated, which is going to have the information about the authorization as well. The same ticket by the user is being forwarded to the authorization server. That authorization server is responsible to cross-check the, what you can say is the session validation, and then only the user is authorized to access. So Kerberos uses the ticket mechanism. So KDC stands for Kerberos Data Center, A stands for Authentication Server, TGS stands for Ticket Granting Server. No one is going to ask you in detail about how exactly the Kerberos works or just to configure the Kerberos. But if you are taking care about the applications with respect to the vulnerabilities, so you need to understand how exactly the tokens are going to be carried out. And since, now please focus on what I am saying. Since Kerberos is using the symmetric key cryptography, please take a note. Symmetric key. Symmetric key means only one key is responsible to encrypt as well as decrypt the request. Only one key is responsible to encrypt as well as decrypt the request. So in that particular sense, what if the key is lost or key is being hijacked? So I won't be able to decrypt the message which is being sent by the user. Are you getting all the participants what I'm saying? So Kerberos is using the symmetric key cryptography. It works on the ticket granting ticket. It user request a ticket, and then the session key is being provided. Based on that session key, user again request a token to access the authorized server. Fine, all the students. So this is one login server, or this is one authentication server, which into the earlier days we were using to authenticate the system. But nowadays we are not using Kerberos for the larger scale deployment. So there could be the question about why we are not using the Kerberos for the larger scale deployment. The reason is because each user is going to require its own key. So if I'm having the millions of users, so I need to carry those many of keys. I need to carry those many of keys, and I need to take care about how to transmit those many of keys securely. So for the larger deployment of the authentication server, we are not using the symmetric key encryption standard, and that's why use of Kerberos is discouraged. Fine. But why we are using the Kerberos for the small scale deployment is because the password is always into the encrypted form. We always go with the 3 different stages of authentication. We always going to go with respect to the tickets. We always going to go with the ticket authorization. So this you need to understand. So A is what you can see from here. It is the authentication server. TGS is named as ticket granting server, and KDC is named as either you can say the Kerberos data center or the Kerberos databases. Fine, all the students. Hello. So this is the one way. This is if someone asks you, what do you mean by authentication server? Or how do you take care about the vulnerability which are being introduced? So these are the communication channels where a person can easily introduce the vulnerabilities. So as a vulnerability devices or as a vulnerability person, if you are working with, so it's your responsibility to understand what are the various communication channel each application is accessing while going through the authentication process. Are you getting all the participants what I'm trying to tell you? Is there any
Ma'am,
question? Yes.
so what do we now use for large scale deployments? Like you
We use
said,
a
we can't.
combination of different things. So shortly we are going to cover the SAML as well. Shortly we are going to cover the federated ID single sign-on as well, which is the OAuth protocol is working for that. LDAP is also there. So there are the different kind of authentication server which in the combination we are using, so that the dependency onto one particular authentication server is quite less. Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
So shall we take a break of 10 minutes, all the participants?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we'll have a break. Any question if before the break, if I can address? Yes. Any of the question? Are you with me and understanding the Kerberos authentication?
No, ma'am, no question.
No question? Fine. So let's meet again here at 11:33. Fine. So let's have a break, and meanwhile, if you do have the question, I will be happy to answer it. So we'll be on break right now. I'm back. All the students, I believe you are here. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we have discussed about the Kerberos. Is there any other question? Shall we proceed? Hello. Shall we proceed ahead right now? My dear students.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. Now, so we were discussing about that for the small scale deployment, generally we go with the Kerberos. It is going to really good because it works with the symmetric key cryptography. The performance of it is really nice. Now, let's talk about in a different way. You are developing the cloud. Yesterday, I was actually delivering a session for the BCA fourth semester. There we are taking care about writing a pseudocode where two different cloud services can coordinate with each other. I do not know whether you have gone through the cloud computing or not, but when you go through the cloud computing, there is named as a one compute service and there is named as a one network, let's say storage service. Fine. And storage also, it is going to be a distributed storage. So when the storage and the compute needs to interact with each other, how do they interact? Storage is an outside component for the compute, or compute is an outside component for the storage. Compute would like to initiate, but storage will not allow the compute to interact until unless compute authenticate itself. If the storage would like to talk to compute, compute will not allow until unless storage authenticate itself. That means there is some particular authentication server and mechanism of that particular authentication server is such that whenever the service is going to be created or service is going to communicate, that communication path follows the need of the tokens, or communication path follows the tokens. Let me give you one particular very nice diagram what I mean to say. Just hold on, let me share the screen. Okay, so let me share my screen with you. Yeah. So just look at this is a very nice the SAML what I have shared with you. So just look at. So when you say SAML, SAML that means security assertion markup language. When I am distributing a cloud over the heterogeneous location, over the heterogeneous network, as a user, I'm not happy to log me in again and again and again. No. I want across the boundary, the same authentication is to be carried out. When I say across the boundary, the same authentication is going to be carried out. That means somewhere I am supporting the single sign-on. Fine. So this is a user. Now think about Tanmay, your question about the Google, what you were asking me. As a user, you are requesting to log in yourself into the Facebook. Fine. So use, and the Facebook is going to ask you. Now Facebook is going to ask you that would you like to use the Google agent or would you like to use the Google credentials? So you are going to say yes. You are going to say yes. So in that particular sense, what is going to happen? The Google is going to work as a service provider at your end. What do you mean by service provider? Service provider means you are giving the credentials. You are giving the credentials to authenticate that particular user. So user is going to have the authentication, the credentials are being passed by the user to the Facebook, and then the users are responsible to access the Facebook account. Are you with me, all Tanmay? Are you with me right now?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. So what I mean to say here, that whenever you go with the distributed systems, there are many identity providers. One is named as a service provider, which is again a service which is going to carry the identity with them. And then there is going to be the identity provider. So identity is being provided by the Google engine. But Google is providing that particular identity to the Facebook on behalf of you. So Google is working as an identity provider as well as a service provider. So it can pass your credentials to the SAML format to a one particular user agent. And there where the communication is going to be done. So the vulnerability chances are how secure your network is, how it is easy to go through the SAML response, how the credentials are being passed through the SAML. I do not know whether you have gone through the REST or SOAP. Have you gone through that? REST architecture and SOAP? Hello?
Yes, yeah, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. So can anyone tell me the difference between both of these? REST and SOAP? Hello? Can anyone tell me the difference between both of these?
Ma'am, one similarity is that both just run on the HTTP. So they share the
Mm-hmm.
same protocol. But I guess, ma'am, I'm not sure, but SOAP as a protocol itself is more stabilized and particular set of messaging patterns as far as compared to REST. That's what
Okay.
I have
Are
read
you
from it.
aware of this particular thing that generally the SOAP is getting used for the private cloud and
Yeah,
the rest is getting used for the public cloud? Fine.
yeah, ma'am.
Let me
Yeah,
give the reason behind that. Because SOAP carries each and every information of the message, whereas the rest is an architecture. What it can carry and what it cannot, it could be easily customizable. Fine. But whereas the SOAP, it carries entire message with it. So for the security reasons, if you are using the SOAP onto the public cloud, the performance wise also it is going to be very bad because the message is going to be very heavy because it carries the entire information as compared to the rest. So whenever the SAML authentication protocol is using across the distributed agents, so it is using the SOAP architecture, sorry, it is using the REST API. Are you getting? So Tanma, I believe I answered your question about how exactly the Google is going to work on.
yeah, ma'am. Absolutely.
Fine?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Any other question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. No, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Anyone else? My dear students, no questions? Fine. Okay. So in that case, let me give some of the questions for you. And let me share my document where you can actually, I can write the questions for you. So the first question is, explain the multi-factor authentication. Explain various factors of multi-factor authentication.
Ma'am, are you sharing the screen?
Yeah, okay. Just hold on. I have shared, I believe. Just hold on. Let me see. No. Just hold on. Let me share it. Yeah. Okay. So explain the various factor of multi-factor authentication. The second is the explain the Kerberos authentication process along with the vulnerabilities introduced. Fine, I'm giving you 10 minutes. Just write it down the answers for yourself. Fine, all the students? And then we are going to discuss about the different kind of hash algorithms as well as the password hashing before we move ahead with the section management. Fine. You please answer these two questions first. So I expect more and more questions while answering these two questions at your end. I believe you are able to understand and write the questions, answers. All the students, I believe you are able to write it. Ask me any question if you do have.
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. Hence we have written along with the vulnerabilities introduced.
Introduced.
So what?
Yeah. So exactly. So here, when you are going to write the different kind of factors, so based on your understanding, as we have discussed as well, you need to take care about what kind of vulnerability it can introduce to your application. Fine. The next thing is, this is a Kerberos authentication. Just now we have discussed that where exactly the vulnerabilities can be introduced. This you need to mention.
Oh,
Fine? Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I hope you are able to write it. Shall we proceed? If you are able to, if you are done.
Yeah, ma'am.
Any question?
No, ma'am, not right now.
Good, good, good. Fine.
Ma'am, if we have, at least if I have any doubt, can I ask you in the next lecture? Because I will need to just browse a bit about.
Sure,
Thank you, ma'am.
not a problem. Not a problem.
Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah, so let me share my screen again. Yeah. So I opened the document, the OWASP document again. So there we have covered a couple of points. And after that, I need to show you that here, if your application manages a credential store, it should ensure that only cryptographically strong way salted hash of password. Anyone is aware of what is the salted hash? Anyone is aware of what
No,
is the
ma'am.
salted hash? Okay. Adding the salt in a food is going to change the flavor of that particular food. I do not know whether you have visited the /etc shadow file. But if you see the /etc shadow file, since it contains the password for all the users, what you are going to have into the Linux operating system, and you can see the permissions as well for that. In the /etc shadow file, the entry for the password argument starts with a character which is going to say by which particular algorithm this password is encrypted. Are you getting, all the participants, what I mean to say? What I'm saying, entries into the /etc shadow file is going to cover into the password parameter, the first character is going to say or is going to define the name of the hash algorithm. The name of the hash algorithm by which the password is encrypted. The only reason is because it can match the password, what the user is saying or what the user is entering. So credential stores are really, really important. Although it gives you the information about how the passwords are being encrypted, but it should take care about that information cannot be decrypted easily by anyone. So what is happening? Every time a salt is being added or salt is being added to the hash of password, so it is going to be prefixed. It is going to be prefixed with some of the special characters or by some of the characters. What is the length of those characters? You really do not know. The objective is not be able to decrypt or not be able to understand how which algorithm is being used to encrypt the password. I do not know whether you are aware of this or not. There is a one particular tool which is available which is named as hashscan. Hashscan is a tool, and if I execute the hash scan onto your Kali Linux, let's say, I can easily recover my password from the encrypted one. How? By reading the first character of the password field, which is telling me that this algorithm is being used to encrypt the password. So that is the major reason why this salt is being added always to the hash. So as an application developer, it's your responsibility that how the passwords are being stored and being encrypted. You are supposed to take care about the salted hash. Fine? Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you with me, my dear students? Come on now. Only Tanmay is not only in my class. Ahmad, are you with me? Akash, Del, Darren, are you getting what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah,
Hello?
like password management.
Yeah? Okay. Now, whenever the user enters the password, and if the password is wrong, I should not say the password is wrong. Whatever the message is getting, because if I'm going to say the password is wrong, attacker or non-legitimate user or the bad user will say, okay, the password is wrong. Now I need to brute force the password. I need to use the dictionary of those passwords. As far as I remember, there is a one tool which is named as Crunch. That tool is responsible. So if you give the guessed number of characters to that particular tool, it is going to create a different kind of permutations and combinations what you can use for the password. So if the time remains, go through the Crunch. As far as I remember, this is a tool name, but you can just check on it. Now, so whenever I am specifying the username or the password, or if the username is wrong or the password is wrong, it should show me username or the password is wrong. It should not show me invalid username or the invalid password. Fine? The message should be quite ambiguous. Complexity requirement according to the policies and regulations. So these are the normal things what you can go on. Fine. After this, a multi-factor authentication we have already covered. And now the session management. Now please go through the password, other important things from the password management. You are aware of this, so you can go through. If anything is not, you can always discuss with me. So just make sure that you need to go through. Okay. Now this is the important thing what you need to understand is a session management. So before I go in detail about the session management, can I go get to know that what is the session? Can anyone tell me what is the session? Can anyone tell me what is the session?
Ma'am, can I say?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Ma'am, as far as I know, it is kind of a temporary, like time or a kind, yeah, you can say time, where two or more devices like share the or communicate between each other.
Mhm.
Uh, that's a
Can a
logical way.
how many sessions a user can create?
Um, Unaware of that.
One session.
Only one session?
I
At
don't
a
think so.
time, user can create one session.
Okay. User can create unlimited number of sessions provided it is not limited by the operating system. Every session is going to consume the main memory. And for every session, its process is going to start. So this is a system administrator job. This is a system administrator job to limit the number of sessions a user can create. Because every session is going to start some amount of process against a one particular server, and that session is going to be there till how long? It is again depending on what is the standard or the policy you are following. If you see the right now the SSAs are firewall login. So I'm only able to create only one session. I'm not able to create the second session until unless I go and specifically say log off from the first session. And if you have noticed as well, and if you do remember as well, that the session is going to be reestablished after some amount of time. So when you take care about the session management, every session is going to have a typical identifier which is named as a session identifier. And sometimes a certificate, the TLS certificate or the SSL certificate, they also carry the session information. That to which particular session the certificate is valid. I'm not exactly aware of that whether you know the bash profile or not. But if you see, if you just do ls minus al to your Linux operating system, ls minus al I'm saying, so it is going to show you some of the hidden files. And out of those hidden files, some of the files are the bash profile files. So what those files are responsible to take care about the authentication, to take care about the executables, to take care about the logouts, to take care about initializing the environment. So once your authentication is done successfully, a session is getting created. A session is getting created, that means a process is going to start, and that session is responsible to access some of the authorized service. Any of the session inactivity, and this is a default behavior in many of the applications, like the default denied is also in the behavior is available. Same way, this is also available that if the session is inactive for some particular period of time, so to mitigate the risk or to reduce the number of risks or by that the vulnerabilities, we need to inactive the session. This allows the persistent logins and enforce the periodic session termination even when the session is active. Suppose I am downloading something. So sometimes if even if I am the authenticated user, my network connection is going to break. I need to authenticate myself again. So session is really important. And the majority of the attacks are getting done when the system is trying to impersonate or when the attacker is trying to impersonate the session or attacker is trying to copy the session. So in that case, you need to understand what could be the vulnerability. What could be the vulnerability the session is going to introduce? Fine. So this is the thing what we need to address while developing any of the application. Are you with me, all the students? We are taking care about the session management, and we need to understand how exactly the attacker can exploit the session vulnerabilities to understand how exactly I can enter into that particular session. Fine. So just hold on. Let me open up one particular document to
Ma'am,
show.
I
Yes,
have
please.
one doubt.
Yes.
Ma'am, you just explained that for every authentication process, one session gets created, right? So if suppose we just take an example of Instagram for that matter,
Hey,
so like every
hold on. Just hold on. Let me
okay, ma'am.
open up first the session management cheat sheet. Yeah. Okay, so here we are. Just let me share this particular link with you as well. Mm, yeah, this is through the OWASP. Let me share this link with you. Yeah, go ahead, Tanmay.
So, ma'am, if we just take an example of Insta. So, ma'am, like every second there are so many people getting into or logging into their accounts. But that means that every person who is just logging into the account on the Instagram, every session is created for that particular person, right?
Yes,
So, ma'am, basically there can be unlimited sessions which have to be created, right?
exactly.
Because there are so many people, billions of people are there.
Yes,
So the right, so basically it does not affect the system that so many sessions. So the session is irrespective that this particular session should be there in this particular amount of time,
no,
right?
try to understand, Tanmay. Just hold on. Your infrastructure must be strong enough so that it can handle all the users' load. When the user is targeting to connect to the your system, that means what it is happening. Behind the scene, a session is created. A session is created, that's why the user is able to connect, otherwise not. Are you getting my point? A session is created, that's why user is able to create, otherwise not. So in that particular sense, you need to understand that how exactly the session can be limited for one particular user, or how exactly the session ID is going to be created, which is going to, which could be vulnerable to understand the attacks. Fine? So
Okay.
without the
Okay.
session, the user cannot connect with the system.
Okay.
But every application limits the number of sessions the user can create, because at every login, if a dedicated process is going to start, number of sessions are going to be like that. So if there are two same user login, two times a user is logging in from the different systems, the two sessions are going to be there. If three
Okay.
times the user is logging in, so for the same user, three different sessions are going to be there. Fine. So every time, whenever the user is trying to connect, a different session is going to start.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay,
Got it,
Tanmay?
ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
So this is a cheat sheet what I have shared with you with the OWASP, and they have given a very nice example. So if you go with the session management implementation, specifically the usage of specific session ID exchange mechanism, where the ID is included in the URL might disclose the session ID, just look at, as well as the facilitate the other attacks, such as manipulation of the ID or the session fixation attack. Just go through the session management implementation to maintain the session state. How you are maintaining the session state. Because session ID is also so if you get the time, just go through these RFCs, what you can see from my screen. Okay, so it is a programmer actually, or it is a developer who is introducing the vulnerabilities into your system just because of the unawareness of that particular session or that particular system. Fine. Okay. So, my dear students, we'll stop here right now. I think I'm tired right now for last 3 hours. So just go through these many of cheat sheets. So they have very nice. If you get the time, they have very nicely mentioned about the transport layer or the TLS as well. How do they fix the session? And here, these are the things which are actually taken care about, introducing the vulnerabilities. And if these things are not implemented properly, for sure the vulnerabilities will be there. Fine? All the students? So we'll stop here for today. Any question is really welcome. But I think we do have still 15 minutes in hand. You can ask me any of the question if you would like to. I hope you are able to follow me, my dear students. Any question? Any suggestion you would like to give to me? Hello? Come on, feel free to suggest me. This is your last semester. You need to understand each and every subject very carefully to see, because this is going to be a base for your career. Anything you would like to say, anything you would like to suggest me? Hello? Come on, we are quite open for the discussion. No suggestion? Are you getting the concept what we are discussing?
Yes,
Akash, Del, Devraj, Himang, Palakji,
yes, ma'am.
Rohit, Satvik. Fine, so let's have attendance right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing. Yeah. Attendance please, PRN 8,
Present, ma'am.
9, 15. I believe Anubhav was there. 18, 19, 20.
Ma'am,
Tanmay,
PRN 20 present.
24,
Present, ma'am.
29. Devraj,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. 29.
36,
Present, ma'am.
37, 38,
Yes, ma'am.
39, 40, Jatin, 44, Keshav, 47,
Yes, ma'am.
51,
Ma'am.
53,
53 present, ma'am.
57,
Present, ma'am. 57.
61, Pavit, 64, 72,
Ma'am, 72 present.
73,
73 present.
74,
Present, ma'am.
80, 84, 86. Sutirtha. 87.
Present, ma'am.
89.
Present.
93. Varun. 96.
96, yes, ma'am.
103.
Present, ma'am.
104.
Yes, ma'am.
105.
Present, ma'am.
105 is
Present,
there.
ma'am.
107. There.
Ma'am, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
107, yes.
109. 107 is present.
107, yes, present.
105. Fine. Okay. So all the
Ma'am.
students. Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. I think mic wasn't working that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Varun. Oh, welcome to my class.
Thank you.
Huh?
I missed a few lectures, I know, ma'am.
You missed, I think, 4 to 5 lectures, Varun.
Yes, ma'am.
So do you think so you are going to cope up? Because we have discussed the terminologies.
Yeah, ma'am, I got to know. I'll catch up.
Just take care about that.
Yeah.
Okay, Varun. And please do not make any kind of absenteeism. The only reason behind that is because we are learning everything new. Okay, so because we are going to use these kind of terminologies again and again. And if you are not getting, the things are really going to be different at your side. Fine?
Yes, ma'am, I'll take care of.
So just take care of that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I will stop the recording.